Welcome, everyone, to our Friday afternoon curious conversation that is our alumni in big tech. My name is Daniel Orozco. I am the director for the Center for Career and Professional Development. If you were here prior to about 2015, it would have been called Career Services. I'm joined by several colleagues representing the alumni and parent relations side. That includes Megan Frisk, Diana Perez, who is my co-host in these curious conversations that we're doing for homecoming, and as well we're joined by Grace Pica. So we have a very robust panel, and in just a moment I'm going to introduce each of them and allow them a moment or two to tell a little bit about their journey. Again, we do want to welcome you as we come to the end of the curious conversations as part of the homecoming celebration, but we hope that if you're able to attend other pieces of the homecoming week, that you've enjoyed them, that you've made some great connections, and will continue to foster some of those connections similar to what we're doing in these kinds of events, as well as all the many other options you have during homecoming. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to start just at the top of my list telling you who we have on our panel. If each panel, just wave your hand for a moment so people will know who you are. So Lauren Jensen, class of 13, is a data scientist at Costco in the Seattle area, and we're happy to have her. Amir Hisabi, a class of 16, is a team lead on the Enterprise Solutions Engineering team at Big Commerce here in Austin. Daniel Mataya is a class of 14. He's a senior consultant on the next generation technology operations team within the technology transformation consulting practice of Ernst & Young. That's a mouthful. Daniel, if you'll raise your hand. Daniel is in New York City. Stephanie Taylor is class of 10 here in Austin. She's a process specialist at Facebook. And Marissa Ortega, class of 18, is in the Washington, D.C., Baltimore area. She's a Salesforce Lightning developer with the Accenture Federal Services. Now, if you don't remember all that, most of that information is on the website for the for homecoming. But we can get you their information, and certainly if our guests are open to this, you're happy to connect with them if they're willing to do that at the end. So why don't we just start with Lauren and just give us a brief snapshot of your journey to where you are, from where you started at Southwestern to where you are now.
Hello, everyone. So I went to Southwestern University, obviously, where I majored in business and political science, and I actually was planning on being a political speechwriter. So, the fact that I went to data science is nothing whatsoever related. But years ago, I interned in DC, and I actually ended up working in the analytics space for one of the national committees. And that got me interested on how the impact of analytics and data science had on campaigns. So after graduation, I took a job at Costco, and I ultimately transferred to the Seattle home office, where I was a marketing analytics analyst, and that role kind of grew into the data science space itself. And a few years after doing that job, I transferred to IT as a data scientist, where I currently do a variety of data science works for travel, for our items, for our membership retention, and for Costco.com. So I'm definitely a living proof of how you can learn on the job, and you can kind of fall into your career as long as you're willing to keep up with like the technology and the knowledge that comes with your job.
Thank you, Lauren. Amir, how about you next?
Yeah, thanks, Daniel. Excited to be here. Hi, everybody. I'm Amir. I'm graduated in 2016 with an independent major in robotics, so a combination between the physics department and computer science. I've been at Big Commerce for just a little over 4.5 years. Have really kind of walked through many different roles here at Big Commerce, and now lead a team of 5 on our solutions engineering team, working with a lot of different business types that are looking to get online and essentially transform their shopping experience to a little bit more digitally oriented environments, and help support those.
Thanks, Amir. Daniel, Mataya, how about you?
Thank you, Daniel, and thank you for having me. So Daniel Mataya, usually go by Dano. Graduated in 2014. Back when I started at Southwestern, I still had a BlackBerry, so I feel like great that I can finally like date myself. Um, yeah, after Southwestern, where I majored in business, I went into consulting, working for a firm called ISG, Information Services Group, based out of Stamford, Connecticut, advising clients on how to improve their operational technology, mostly dealing with outsourcing and application rationalization. Um, After about 4 or 5 years there, I went over to EY. Uh, their technology transformation team is around 300 to 400 people in America. And specifically, I'm in a small sector called Next Gen Tech Ops, focusing on sort of the same stuff I did at ISG. A lot of outsourcing, a lot of operational technology stuff. And yeah, it's been nuts. Moved to New York during the pandemic for this new job. And the city's coming back. I'll say that. Thank you.
Thank you. It's good to hear. Lots of cities are beginning to come back, I think. All right, Stephanie, how about you?
Sure thing. Hi, everyone. Welcome. I graduated Southwestern in 2010, so also dating myself, Daniel. And I majored in music and English, and I was going to be a rock star harpist. I was not going to work in tech. I moved to Seattle. Turns out it's really hard to lug a harp around in hills in the rain. And as my day job, I worked on a ship. And then when I got tired of that, I taught ballroom dancing. And then when I got tired of that, I got a job at a startup because they didn't know what they were looking for and they didn't know what experience to look for. And then I learned a little bit about accounting, which I had like kicked and screamed about not learning. But then I also was in dire financial straits and learned the value of accounting, and ended up getting a heart for people who have payment issues while they're especially trying to run a small business, like all of the small businesses I worked for. So when I moved to Austin, I did a lot more odd jobs for small to medium businesses and ended up as a contractor for Facebook, where I answered ads payments questions, which was mostly ads payments complaints, and got to know the team really well and ended up transitioning to full-time at Facebook. And now I've been there for 5 years, and I designed the customer support entry points and channels for making sure that people can get access to refunds. So help build chat support, I do automated support, and then I try to consult with product teams launching payment products.
Excellent, Stephanie. Thank you very much. And Marissa, how about you?
Great. Hi, everyone. My name is Marissa Madrid Ortega. I graduated Southwestern class of 2018, so probably the most recent grad here. But I currently live in Washington, D.C. I was a computer science major at Southwestern, so probably the most standard, sorry, my cat's right here, the most standard of all of the kind of like big tech majors that you can have. I got a job at Accenture Federal Services, which is a government consulting agency. And I've been there for the majority of my career at this point. And currently I work with the United States Department of Agriculture, building their different systems just for all things ag. And so I've worked on things from broadband internet, to in rural areas to currently right now I'm working on hemp regulation. So there's a lot of things that you can do in big tech, including stuff with the government. So I'm really excited about talk about that.
Excellent. So each of the panelists have worked on or answered some of the initial questions we had about just a general introduction and kind of how you got where you are. But I want to add to that, one of the questions that we put together for this was, when and how did you know that this was the industry that you were going to pursue? That may be a short answer. And then I want to add to that the question that came up in the chat that has to do with what advice would you give to a student right now saying this is important for you if you want to pursue a career in this particular area? So I was paraphrasing that a little bit, so I'll just read you the question. What is the most important thing a college student should be pursuing now to ensure their success once they graduate from college? I'll just open it up to any of our panelists who would like to jump in.
I can go first. I touched a little bit on not knowing that I wanted to be in tech at all. I actually had a very specific moment when I was teaching ballroom dance, and I was like in hose and heels and not able to go out dancing myself because I was spending all evening dancing with other people and training them to do it. And one of my students was a Facebook exec. And I remember thinking, gosh, I could never ever work at a place like Facebook. That's crazy. But I started thinking about what kind of life do I want to have? Do I want to have my creative stuff be everything I think and dream and stress about? Or do I want to have a 9 to 5 where I can do creative stuff outside of that and have a fairly like comfortable living situation? And so that was kind of what I was balancing in a position where I was not in a very comfortable living situation and couldn't do the creative stuff because my hours were so crazy, which was part of the reason why I transferred from HARP into a different industry. As far as what I could have done better, what is the most important thing a college student should be pursuing? I really wish I had done an internship. Lauren can probably speak to how that actually goes. I did not. I double majored and then I studied abroad twice, and that was awesome, but it wasn't very forward thinking. And I wish I had networked a little bit better and really like thought through and talked to people who were in different types of industries. And I wish I had been a little bit more open about the business world, because I was I'm going to be a punk rocker and I'm going to do liberal arts. And if I had been open to what you can do creatively in other spaces, I think that would have set me up for success a little better.
Thank you.
So I'll follow up to Stephanie. I agree with a lot of what Stephanie said. And since I currently read through all of our intern candidates for my group, like it's very competitive to be an intern. But I think the biggest thing I would add to that is the ability to problem solve, and also to not like focus in on one specific thing. It's okay, as Stephanie pointed out, that if you change direction, and that's not world ending. And I think we get so tunnel vision that like I want to do X, or I majored in X, that we're afraid to explore out. But the problem is you've gotten the first job, if you manage to do so, and now you've got to figure out how to get the next job. And that's all going to come down to how can you problem solve? How can you actually deal with the fact that things aren't going to go how you anticipate they're going to go?
Yeah, and I'll add to that. I think Laura and Stephanie made some great points in regards to that. Like, it doesn't matter if you're a biology major or if you're a art history major. What's really important in the market is like what are your people skills? Like, do you like to write? Do you like to talk to people? Do you like to problem solve, like Lauren mentioned? So don't be afraid to explore. I got to figure out that I don't want to be a software developer through an internship that I did the summer of 2015. And, that would have resulted me being in a cubicle writing code every day. And I wanted to kind of be talking to people all day. Then I switched over to IT and worked at Dell for about 6 months. And then I realized I don't want to be in a huge company like Dell because it was such a corporate, rigid environment. And there was clearly not ways to grow as quick as I wanted to. And then I found myself at a startup called BigCommerce 5 years ago. And, now BigCommerce is somewhat of a big company that I work for. It has given me the opportunity to really experience a lot of different things in sales and solutioning and product development at the company, and really kind of find what I enjoy doing day to day. And it's not just work, it's actually something that I kind of want to go to and want to be a part of and help build. So I think it's really important for you to, like Lauren said, like open your mind to the different opportunities that come across. Take interviews. Like, interviews are not tests. You might get a job, you might get an offer, and you don't have to accept it if you got an offer. So just go through the motions, get practice in, and kind of figure out what works for you the best, and then make sure you like the people you're working with.
Yeah, I will definitely echo some of the points, but I mean, all in all, I think getting experience in all different varieties and really using that to find out what you truly love to do and what can be great and where you can flourish. And I think from that standpoint, consulting for me has just been phenomenal because you're basically thrown on multiple projects with multiple clients throughout the years. And I've had some that are super boring where I'm stuck in Peoria, Illinois, working on a boring transition for Caterpillar, where I can't stand those days, but then I know in 3 months later I'm doing something else completely different. Now I'm leading the vaccination support management for the state of Maryland. Completely different type of role, completely different type of experience, but consulting opens that door for allowing you to one, meet a lot of people and build your network, and two, find out what you really like to do and where you can flourish.
I think there's a lot to say about just having like the flexibility, and that comes in a lot of different ways. I'll say for me, I never really expected to end up doing government consulting work. I thought, oh, if I'm going to get this computer science degree, then I'm going to end up in some big company in Silicon Valley. After meeting people and doing the networking and doing the internships, I was like, wow, I really don't want to do that. So that was super helpful and also eye-opening, but then it was like, oh, wow, what do I want to do? And I think the ability to be flexible and adaptable to all of those situations is kind of what led me onto like this career path. And I think having those abilities to just kind of like keep moving and keep up with change is one of the best things you can do.
Excellent. So as we move on, I would welcome anyone who is on this session. If you have a question, either put it in the chat or maybe you show your face and ask the question. So I don't want it to be just something that we're feeding the question. So we welcome. I see that Maria's on there. So I know Maria's always good for at least a half a dozen good questions. So hop in whenever you want to, Maria. So several of you did mention internships, and even Stephanie, you mentioned that you didn't do that. In hindsight, certainly that is an area that our office focuses on. And while it is our primary, we're probably the primary people that work on that. There are so many other areas that are working to help students get that kind of related experience. So in our outreach to students, what would you have wanted to hear that, and it's kind of goes back to that question we asked earlier, what should they be doing? But what would have gotten your attention that is important? Because we pump a lot of information out to students and as well as other offices on campus, and sometimes it just goes overlooked. I'll be kind about it in that way. But what would you, as a student, when you think back, what would have gotten your attention?
So I'll just jump in. I very little when I was doing my 4 years. I was very focused on being a harpist, and I had trained for it in high school, and I thought I knew all of the things. And I actually went back later after I did my 4 years. I went back to the career services. I think for like 1 or 2 years, they were like, oh, you get a free session. And I talked with, I think, Alexandra, and I was like, I need help with my resume, and I don't know if this company I'm applying for is a scam. And it was super helpful to be able to have the resource a little bit after the fact, after I had some real world experience and been burned a couple times, to still have that community to access. So that was a thing that was super helpful for me.
I think for me, it would have been really great to hear about like the importance of like building your personal brand. I mean, now I feel like we're tasked, at least at EY, with like attaining badges and taking classes and courses on top of like your normal client work. But the amount of, free learning there is online now, and all the resources that you can get from other places, in 2021 is crazy. So I think, learning, taking classes that interest you on anything that can build, one, your social capital, and two, like your personal brand, that you're able to have, great conversations with people because you really expanded your knowledge on a certain base. So really just going out of your way to build that brand and your internal knowledge of all things possible, whether in tech or industries, doesn't matter. I think that would have been huge for me to know.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. I was at the career services office probably maybe once a week or so before I graduated. And there was a lot of information, like you mentioned, Daniel. But I think what would have helped me a lot would have been really understanding, like, within a company, what are the different roles, and like what do those roles day to day look like, right? There are marketing paths, and there's sales paths, and there's engineering and product paths, there's consulting, there's like management types of roles. So like kind of trying to figure out what are those paths looking like, and kind of helping me understand, like, which one matches my personality, the type of work that I like to do day to day, or not like to do day to day, right? Just kind of figuring that out from a services support perspective, especially like in a big tech company. Every tech company has all sorts of those jobs and postings within that. So kind of providing that type of an information to me, rather than just kind of like general, these are all the opportunities that are out there in internships, focused by the industry as a whole, but rather, there's all these different industries, but they all have marketing in them. They all have sales in them. And if you're a people person, maybe you should look into the sales opportunities. And if you're a good writer, maybe you should look into copywriting and advertising, that type of a kind of a function. If you're analytical, maybe, data science is best suited for you. And then kind of providing the places, those free places like LinkedIn Learning and like all these other areas where you can take some courses to like get a better understanding of that role specifically, because we don't teach that in college, right? And in college there's a lot of great courses you can take, but like one of the best classes that I took was a business course that was like an elective for me, that like really taught me, like, how the crucial conversations that maybe it's still there, maybe it's not there anymore, that really still helps me on my day-to-day kind of job. So yeah.
I'll say that for coming from like a minority background and stuff like that, I think one of the most important parts is that there are so many jobs out there that most people have never heard of. And that's a huge thing. I didn't know what consulting was until I got this job. I didn't know all the different positions and things like that people could be doing out there. And so I think like having the ability to learn about those kind of like weird sounding jobs that you didn't know existed was really helpful for me from career services. I think a lot of people coming from immigrant households or minority background households, you kind of hear a lot about like, oh, doctor, lawyer, your like standard kind of jobs. So I think learning about all the opportunities out there, and there are, millions of different things you could be doing, was really important.
I think I would add, like, how do you encourage students to like do internships? Is education is very, on one hand, linear, like you take classes and you get a grade and whatever, and getting a job is not so linear. It's not about like, getting an A or whatever. So I think it can be difficult, or at least I felt it was difficult to figure out like what were the prereqs to a degree of getting a job, because it's not just your major. And I think internships really help you figure out what you like in a company and in a boss and in employment, and also what you don't like. And I think that's just as valuable. And I'm definitely the extreme. I did a fair number of internships, and so I know, but I had a good friend who she was supposed to do her internship for her degree and she never did, and she graduated and did her internship and realized she hated the job. Right. And at that point, you've graduated, and she has a very specialized degree. It's in American Sign Language. So you're kind of stuck. So I think trying to like appreciate that college, while it's awesome and why it's all about education, it's also about, if you're not going to go up into academics, it is about trying to figure out what you're going to do post college. And the best way to figure that out is interning or volunteering with other groups.
I think we've heard from all of the panelists on that question. Before I go to another question, again, I open up the floor for anyone. Maria?
So I'm curious to see, one, it's so great to see so many of you. It just warms my heart. But I'm curious, as you look back, some of you not more recent, but, as you get further away from being on campus as a student, do you find that there are particular skills or particular, maybe it was a class or a faculty member or some type of leadership experience that you find, I keep coming back to what I learned from that in my role now? Like, I had no idea at the time that this would be so impactful to me in the work that I do or in the type of colleague I am or whatever it is. But I'm curious as to your reflections and thinking about that.
I think about some stuff like all the time. I felt like it was kind of strange at like going through it, but I feel like in every class, like I was required to present, which is, super helpful coming off professionally to colleagues or clients. And, getting that experience speaking in front of people is just, you can't get enough of it. And the other thing was just like collaboration. You're going to be doing a lot of heads down work, at some point, but at the end of the day, you're eventually going to be working on a team or reporting to somebody, and really learning how to collaborate and fit into like the culture of a small group and adapt to, different people's working styles was great. Like doing that in so many different, business classes and humanities classes at Southwestern was phenomenal for me, because that's for me my biggest skill in consulting, I think, is just winning hearts and minds, and getting people to like me. Eventually, leads to growing business. So, that for me is what I go back to.
Yeah, I agree. And I'd also say that ability that you all have done of writing the 15-page paper the night before it was due, right? That ability to like power straight through when you need to, I think serves you well. And that practice of, presentation or whatever, I looked out and I had a lot of classes with Andy Ross, and we did a lot of presentation and a lot of consumer behavior. And it's fascinating because I'll ask like, interns, how do you think members or customers will respond? And they're like, well, I don't know. And I'm like, but if you don't know your member base, I don't care what you do. So I think learning how the market responds or whatever, and writing presentations, which you do a ton of, is really vital.
For me on that, I did the Paideia program. I was I think I was the second round of Paideia. And having this interdisciplinary collaboration group where everyone had a different perspective from a totally different major, where we were all trying to bring all of these diverse perspectives into a single theme. And mine was with Dr. Kimberly Smith. It was vision and visuality, and which was not a thing, I was doing like music and English, so it was not vision related. And and being able to speak to other perspectives, collaborate, and bring multiple resources in to cover a theme and talk through that in an analytical and like growth way has been fundamental to how I approach work at Facebook. Collaboration, bringing in diverse perspectives, and being able to take really ambiguous information and streamline it into a cohesive story is one of the top skills. And so that is something that I was surprised by, because for me, Paideia had been like, oh, I get to like talk to new people and like learn a new thing. That's cool. But I didn't realize the foundations it was laying.
Jean, I saw that you raised your hand, and after you.
I did. So there's a question online that you need to answer, but I'm going to make a comment from an old person perspective. I'm almost 40 years out. I'm 38 years out. And my husband and I have very different perspectives. He went to a big school and majored in business, and then has worked at IBM and Microsoft for how many years now, Larry? Over 30. Way over 30, 35 years or so. But he got laid off at Microsoft a year and a half ago, and he is too old. And so he got in the back door for a contract job through a friend, which is great, and he's in accessibility. And so we have a different angle being old. And you have rework your resume differently when you're old, which was interesting because they don't, he has tons of experience. So as we get old, we need help too. And I was a math and business major, and I worked for Grace's grandparents at the Williamson County Sun and did the accounting, but I had computer skills back when we didn't have a computer degree, folks. We just took classes, and that is one of the questions that's addressed from Bridget Collins online, if in the chat, if you haven't seen it. Anyway, but I had computer skills, and her grandpa said, I want to convert to computer. And I said, I'll try. Now, back in 83, that was hard because it was a whole different world than you guys have any dream about. But I converted from paper to computer and did it by paper. And you talk about tired. I was tired, and there wasn't any base to know how to do that. You just had to figure it out. And fortunately, being young, I had energy. So that was a really good experience. I ran businesses for 20 years. I was a financial manager in Texas for businesses for 20 years. And I did everything you can imagine, from digging up septics to dead cats to the accounting system. And I had contacts. I think contacts are so major, and Lauren knows me well, and Megan and Grace do too. You gotta talk to people, you gotta get to know people, even if they're not in the field you're expecting them to be in. I got one job that led to another job that led to another job, not in the channel, as I think Lauren said, not linear, but your contacts. I know people all over the country that Megan and Grace know this. And I reach out because I feel like, Stephanie, I might have emailed you, I don't know. But anyway, I'm in Pacific Northwest. But anyway, I think contacts with knowledge, with being opportunistic on just take a chance. You may fail, but take a chance to at least talk to people and find out more is so important. But my husband, it's been hard for him because they do discriminate against us old folks, and that's sad. But also, we didn't necessarily want to move because we're old and nearing retirement. So, that's something you have to consider, is y'all appear, maybe some of you are married, I don't know, but that does impact things. Anyway, I've said too much. But the question does need to be answered, that's on the basic skill of computers, if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, thank you, Jean. Thank you for your comments. there is a question that Bridget posted, and I'll ask the panelists to address that. But I do want to say something about at least one of the things that Jean mentioned, and that has to do with those contacts and networking. Certainly, this is an example of it. All of us being on this panel today, and all the other activities that not only just happen with homecoming, but in all of the other events that are hosted on campus. It is teaching students to engage with each other and ask questions and learn how to give answers and be ready to do that. And certainly, as was mentioned by some of our panelists, the presentations and the writing that is done on this campus through the academic side specifically is very helpful to them. But Bridget asks a question. She says, are there any basic skills in computer or other that she says my high school kid should have? So as they're coming out of high school and coming to college, and even maybe from college to into the workforce, what are some of those basic things that you would say you need to be able to do when it comes to computer work, computer skills?
I'll go. I'll say most likely your high school your high schoolers already know pretty much most of the basics on a computer. Coming to college, I wouldn't say you need to have any sort of development skills. If they're interested in that, I think that's fine to start learning, but you don't have to go to college with that. I wouldn't even say you had to leave college with that. But generally, like most of the times, I'm assuming your high school students know how to use your basic like Word, Excel, PowerPoint in like the most basic ways, and anything else. Like if they want to go into business, there are Excel classes that they can take on that. So I wouldn't say there's anything very specific that they need to do other than what I'm sure they probably inherently already kind of know, just the way that our like society runs on technology. And
I totally agree with that. And I think one of the nice things with high school is that it's a time where you get to really explore. Most high schoolers now, I mean, in general, they do so many things and they get so many classes and they have to be held to such a level of excellence that because colleges are so competitive that, yeah, Marissa's like totally right. They probably have all of the basics. What I think is harder in high school is to be strategic about where you want to go because you don't know all of your options. So not being afraid to try new things, even if it doesn't seem like something that you're interested in, is good. And then if there's something that you love, then look at the specialty stuff for that. So one thing I wish I had done was learn Photoshop a little bit more because I really loved drawing. Or when you're writing, there's a tool called Scrivener, which has like cool layouts and stuff. But if there's something that they love, then try to learn like some of the certifications, some of the majors that are some of the roles and some of the technology involved in that. But more exploring and being strategic or thinking ahead is what I would recommend.
Anyone else want to add to that from our panel?
I use Microsoft Excel every single day. I don't know. I hate it so much. Like my brain is fried usually by Friday. That and Power BI. I would say that those two. I use them all the time for the last like 2 years.
Daniel, I didn't hear the last one you said after Excel.
Microsoft Power BI or like Tableau, like visualization software.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean the basics of the computer are practically like kind of being able to read and write. Like if you don't know those, like you should know those. And a lot of companies, like we have about 40 different softwares that we interact with throughout the day and our own. So as you kind of get into a job, there are those specific softwares, whether it's like a Salesforce or Atlassian products like a Jira or a Confluence, like those are things that you'll probably kind of pick up as you go through a job. Some companies like Dell have their own proprietary software that they use, but I think just like everybody else said, it's crucial to know those basics, right? Whether it's Excel, whether it's Google Sheets, whatever it is in terms of those presentation table spreadsheets and document tracking types of software, I think those are table stakes. Like if you don't have those, you probably won't get past this first level of interviews in a tech company.
I think consistently one of the things that we hear is employers are wanting people to at least have the abilities to show from experiences they've had, whether it's a different software than what my company uses, but just the ability to learn and to use software. As if you can do it over there, you can probably learn ours and do it over here. And so I think it's that is a key thing, while because obviously no one can know every software, but being able to be flexible enough to do that is pretty consistent what we're hearing. Okay, so I have another question, and we're kind of winding down, and I want to give some time for just any last minute comments that people might want to make. But one of the questions that we put together is had to do with what each of you feel just within the area of the industry that you're in, what the biggest challenges, trends, or threats for your industry will be over the next 2 to 3 years. And I kind of like the fact that we said 2 to 3 years, because many years ago, like Gene, I'm toward the end of my career. We would say, what's going to happen in this industry in 10 or 15 years? Industries they go way faster than that. So the 2 or 3 years, is really stretching it, I think. So what are some of those challenges, trends, or threats that you see coming over the next 2 to 3 years?
I can start. I would say probably the biggest one, which is good and bad, is just data privacy in general. I think there's going to be more push, like California, to have a data privacy policy. And I think from a consumer perspective, that's very good. But it becomes very complicated, especially if you're a big company, to try to manage a data policy differently for every 50 states, plus internationally as well. But that also being said, hacking is really on the rise, right? So trying to deal with your rights to your data, what companies are doing with your data, and do you really realize what's actually happening? Especially, I work in data science. The things that companies do with your data, you probably don't want to know, but they're doing it. So I think that's going to be the biggest thing, at least in that specific sphere, is if people are going to really start pushing back on their data and making sure it's safe.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, go for it.
I had a similar thought. Lauren, I assume, Amir, you have this all of the time in your role too. At Facebook, obviously, data privacy is a huge issue. It's been in the news. It's been in the government. There's a lot of stuff happening right now to restrict or to increase privacy. The EU just passed a bunch of laws to really bring transparency to how data is used. And it's really hard. It's a hard problem to increase data privacy while also protecting people. So what I was actually going to say was encryption. Encryption is like the next level of how we're going to be making things private. But I also work in operations and I work in payments, and my sister team is risk. And so they specifically look at preventing fraud on, like, monetary fraud on the platform. So making sure that people aren't laundering money via a fake nonprofit that people are donating to, or also keeping people safe. So if there's like connected apps that are like trying to mine for surveillance or something like that, how do you prevent that from happening? And the more things are encrypted and the higher your privacy is, the more your protection gets dropped, because there's not oversight for people to get the trends and the analysis they need to shut those down. So there are whole teams at Facebook dedicated to looking at trends and surfacing it to e-crimes or to the local governments or local police forces to make sure that bad things aren't happening. And the more we increase in privacy and encryption, the harder that becomes. So I think that's going to be a massive, massive thing that comes up. So Lauren's absolutely right. I think many, many tech companies are going to be doing that. And what's going to be hard is a lot of governments aren't necessarily equipped to make those decisions with the right nuances needed to also be protecting people. So it's going to be a hard problem to solve.
Yeah, data is fun. I'm not really interested in kind of, doing more data than I already do. My job, part of it is to tell brands how to use people's data to target them and sell them more products. So fun part of the internet where you go shopping. And what's really interesting about what we're seeing in the internet space is that it took 23 years for the internet consumer spending to go from 0 to 10%. And then right during the pandemic, it grew 10% on its own. So the next 5 or 6 years, we're going to see about 40 to 30% of all consumer spending be happening on the internet. And I think that's a really fascinating space to be in, especially with places like Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and YouTube, all kind of opening doors to platforms like us to essentially bring shopping much closer to the shoppers where they are. And that directly relates to the data. So how do you help brands to figure out, based on what YouTube videos you watch, to what products to sell you, and what is your interest and what did you search on Google, so that I can serve up the right recommendation of skis that you bought in last year to versus what skis you're going to purchase this year. So I think internet is a really fascinating place to be a part of as a tech industry. And if you find yourself in a tech space that touches some part of the internet, whether it's the data part, whether it's the shopping part, whether it's the logistics and fulfillment side of it, it's going to be growing massively in the next 5-6 years. So you won't get bored, and if you got bored, there's always something else to do in it.
Yeah, the biggest trend right now for me that I'm dealing with, today, and it's going to continue to happen, and it's probably going to affect, a lot of jobs as they are today, but also create opportunities, is automation. So many of our minute daily tasks can be automated, which makes our life easier, but also at the same time eliminates the need for, power of resources. So, you'll see it at McDonald's. We worked with them at building their kiosk, so people can go up and place an order. It's funny, I walked into a McDonald's down the street here, and there's just a lot of people in older generations who just don't know how to use the machine and don't want to accept that yet. But either way, it's going to happen, and more jobs are going to be lost that way. So, it's a great opportunity for people getting into tech to look into roles that deal with automation and kind of how to thrive in that space and be game changers, because it's really happening all around. And one of the biggest processes I do when it comes to outsourcing deals is completing RFPs and submitting those. And we're in talks to work with a software as a service to basically automate half of our process, therefore eliminating some of our teams. Makes the work easier, but eliminates the need for having 6 people on a deal when we can get it done with 3 because we're using an automated platform to build it. So automation for me it's kind of everything.
I'll say I think one of the biggest, not only threats, challenges, all of those kind of things coming to big tech, and coming to pretty much everyone, will be climate change in general. There's a lot going on in big tech. A lot of people are working right now to kind of address some of those problems. However, a lot of big tech does contribute to those exact same problems. And so our energy use, the way we build our cities, the way technology is utilized in all of those things, that's going to be a huge trend over these next, probably starting very soon until whatever happens there. So I'll say climate change for threats, possibilities, trends, challenges that we're all going to face. And I think big tech will play a very large role.
Okay, I think everybody. Lauren, did you get a chance to say something? Oh yes, you did. Data privacy. Sorry. thank you all for those comments and thoughts. Some of those I thought, oh yeah, I've heard that one. A couple of them I would say, I hadn't really thought about that, but thank you for sharing that. So we have about 5 minutes or so to before we have to conclude this. So from the rest of our guests, does anyone have a question or a comment? I'm looking to see if there are any more comments that I missed. I see that Amir, you referenced the fact that you bought an RFP software that has really helped you, and I'm looking to see. Stephanie, you said for those interested in automation, looking up machine learning and how that works, YouTube, one of those great resources. Also, let's see, use process mapping software like Visio or OmniGiraffe. Sorry, I'm having to lean in because the print is real small here. OmniGiraffe, that lets you visualize all of the endpoints for an automated flow. Okay. Anyone else have a question?
I just want to make a comment, Daniel. Since I started at BigCommerce, there's now about 10 Southwestern alumni that work at BigCommerce, and we're hiring about 40 to 50 open jobs right now at the company, all various departments. So, you know, if anyone is interested in any sectors of a company, whether it's marketing, whether it's sales, support, technical support, whatever it is, then development, we're actively hiring in Austin, and you know, looking for fresh minds and fresh eyes to kind of bring on. So yeah, feel free to, you know, share my contact with them, let them know. There's a lot of us from Southwestern at BigCommerce, and would love to see more.
Excellent. Yeah, I'll make sure to pass that on to our employer developer, Austin Painshod, but I think he probably has been in contact with somebody, if not you, at BigCommerce. So yeah. Anyone else?
One thing I wanted to say that virtual world has done for me, I'm a musician, and I've been doing a lot of virtual music, but there's a real huge need right now for people that can stitch all the music together. But also y'all probably are all fine doing a video and sending it and submitting it, but we have a large population of older folks who are performers who are very uncomfortable. And so one of the things I've been doing is helping a lot of my friends, but a lot of my friends don't want to learn. And I think that's one thing that Southwestern probably has seen with the homecoming, is that there are many older 60 and older folks who do know how to use computers, who can do virtual things, but there's going to be a big market there for youngsters to help those old folks be able to maneuver this world that is becoming more and more online, and has been going that way for a while, but there's a big market there for that sort of thing. Anyway, that's just my comment.
Yes, and it looks like, Grace, you mentioned that video editing or video creation in general is in high demand right now, so we definitely are seeing that. Does anyone else have a comment or question they'd like to make before we wrap this up? Okay, I want to circle back to something that's, I believe Stephanie mentioned this, because I believe you were saying you had spoken with Alexander after you graduated. I know a number of years ago, and this would have been at least 8 years before, because I've been here almost 8. There was limited access to alumni to use career services, but those days are gone. I mean, if you want to connect with us, you can certainly connect with us. You know, at one of my previous schools, we used to say, from the womb to the tomb, we will help you. And that may be a little more graphic than we need to be, but so I would say to you as alumni that, you know, career services, little c, little s, the CCPD is here to work with you. You can connect with us, you know, through our site on the web, or you can go through others, even through alumni and parent relations, or anyone, and reach out to us, and we will do what we can to help in whatever area of your search that you're in. So I just wanted to make that comment. I do want to thank each of our panelists today, Stephanie, Lauren, Dano, Marissa and Amir. I'm bouncing around the screen here, and people's pictures move, so I can't keep them all where I want them to be. But I want to thank you each for being a part of this and providing that feedback. I know that for Marissa and Amir, when they were here since I've been here, one of the things that I tell students is that giving back, there's many, many ways you can do that. And eventually our goal is that the students that we work with, we want to be able to come back to them just as we have now through any channel to say, hey, here's a way you can give back. And this is one of those ways. So to our panelists, thank you from not only the Alumni Parent Relations and CCPD, but from the university and all of the wonderful students and alumni and friends of the university that we have for being a part of that. So thank you very much. Okay. Does anyone else have something they want to say before we shut this down? Okay, thank you, Amir. I'm just going to poke a little bit at you before we close. SUPD would like their yellow bikes back, so
Those are pawned off somewhere else now. So.
Okay. All right. Everybody have a great rest of the day and enjoy the rest of the activities related to homecoming. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.